Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of the Nutrition by Carmen podcast. Whether it's a Monday morning you're listening to this brand new episode, or if it's an evening and you're going for a walk, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I really appreciate all the support this new podcast has received, and I'm just so grateful to all of you who have listened. And just on that note, if you are somebody that has listened consistently and you have not yet left a 5-star rating and review, the written reviews really help the podcast grow. I would really appreciate if you could take less than 2 minutes of your day just to write a sentence or two about what you're loving about the Nutrition by Carmen podcast. It will just help reach way more people and hopefully grow into something really special. So again, thank you if you've supported and listened to episodes. It really means the world to me. So on that note, I am coming to you today with a brand new episode, and one I'm actually really excited to chat about, and that is healthy tips while traveling or on vacation. And, it makes me really happy to be able to do a podcast about traveling because, and I'm knocking on wood right now, that hopefully means that our COVID-19 pandemic is nearing an end. I know it is not 100% over, but it is over enough where we can actually travel, go on vacations again with our family, our partner, whoever. And that just feels really good. And I hope it feels good for you guys as well. And you've been able to do some traveling within the last few months as well. So if you follow me on Instagram, thank you. If you do not, you can follow me at Nutrition by Carmen. You will have seen that I've recently come back from Argentina. I was there for just over 3 weeks with my husband, and we were on our honeymoon. So we got married in 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic. And so just recently have we only really been able to take our honeymoon. I know some of you were messaging me and asking me why we're only going on our honeymoon now. And well, the answer was COVID. We were perhaps going to go last year in 2021, but things were just still pretty bad. Restrictions were still hit or miss, and things were just a little uncertain, too uncertain for our liking. And so we just decided, you know what, we've waited long enough. Let's just wait 1 more year, hoping that we can go and there won't be any restrictions or anything like that. And so we really lucked out, and our timing was great. It was absolutely worth the wait. And you will have seen on my Instagram all the food that we absolutely enjoyed. So anyways, enough about my personal life. I want to chat to you about traveling, going on vacation, and hopefully you've got some vacations planned for this year, and being on vacation while trying to be healthy, or if you're on a nutrition journey, because I know that's a topic that a lot of my clients have either dealt with in the past or will currently be dealing with because they're on my program now and they've got some upcoming travel planned. So I thought this was a really relevant topic just because we're starting a new year. This is typically when people will plan vacations for later in the year. And then I've also come back from a trip as well. So I have some insight and tips to share with you all. Now, first and foremost, if you listen to my very first podcast episode, I was talking all about the holiday season. I was talking about Christmas, New Year's, celebrations, and all of that sort of stuff. And if you listen to that episode, you will have heard me say that that time of year is a time that really should be enjoyed. Food should be enjoyed. The company of your family and friends should be enjoyed. Meals, snacks, all that good stuff should be really, really enjoyed. And it should not, in my opinion, be a time of the year where you are meticulously counting calories, you're tracking everything you eat, because really there is nothing good about that when it's a time of year that I'm sure a lot of you have worked so hard for. And this might be the one time a year you get to really rest and relax. And so that is why I say, in that couple weeks where you've got dinners and happy hours and lunches and brunches, to really enjoy those foods, because they don't happen all the time, and they are probably a time of the year everybody looks forward to. And so the holiday season is sort of a similar way that I look at traveling and vacation. So typically you're booking a trip because you want a break from work, you have vacation days to use up, or you just really want a vacation. You want to get out of your routine. Maybe it's cold where you are. You want to go to a sunny destination. And so typically you're booking a vacation to recharge, relax, have fun with your friends and family or whoever it is you're going with. And with that being said, I highly support the fact that while on vacation, the food that you're indulging in should be enjoyed, and you should be enjoying everything that you're eating, you're drinking, and not worrying too much about your nutrition journey, your health, and all of that. I think there can be a balance between the two, which I'll talk about later in this episode, where you are indulging and enjoying, but you are still keeping things in track as best you can without going overboard with counting calories and opting out of dinners or something because you're on some sort of health journey. And on that note as well, if you are following some sort of program or whatever it is that you're on where, they don't support lifestyle, sustainable fat loss approaches, kind of like what I'm talking about here with travel, that would be a place where I would maybe pause and just ask if what you're currently doing is something you can see yourself doing for a long period of time. Because the whole point and reason behind my business, my programs, my clients who are fabulous, is we go through their weekly program and we implement healthy and sustainable habits. And that includes going on vacation. I actually love when my clients have to go somewhere when they're on my program, because it's a perfect time for them to keep up with all the habits and the behaviors that they've learned, while also learning how to enjoy themselves on vacation and not worry too much about the foods that they're eating and the drinks that they're drinking. And so this episode is dedicated to that. And, I also wanted to say that, there are some things as well that you can do while you're away if you do not want your vacation to be a complete free-for-all. And so, yes, that's what I'm going to address today. And also, a few weeks ago on my Instagram, I put up a question box about asking you guys what you wanted me to address on this podcast when it comes to health, travel, and vacation. And so I've got a bunch of those that I'm going to answer. And then I'm also going to share how I managed my health and nutrition while I was away in Argentina. You might be surprised at some of it based on the amount of food that I ate and I posted. But anyways, I've got a few things that I want to share. So let's just get into the healthy tips I want to share about travel, and then we'll take it from there. So tip number 1, and this is number 1 because this actually happens before you even leave your front door to go on vacation. And so tip number 1 I have is preparing your home before you actually go on vacation. Now, I know that might sound weird because I said I would give you tips while you are away and traveling, but one of the most valuable tips I can give you happens before you even go away. And that is making sure that you have at least one option of something nutritious in your fridge, in your freezer, or in your pantry that you can create a meal out of as soon as you come home for your trip. So if you aren't going away for too long, you can leave something in your fridge that won't expire, and that's fantastic. So say you're going away, you're doing an all-inclusive to Mexico for 7 days, amazing. So in that case, you could leave some Greek yogurt in your fridge, and then maybe with that in your pantry, you've got some rolled oats that don't go bad, and then hopefully in your freezer, you've got some frozen fruit. And so that way, just with those 3 small things, you know that as soon as you come back from that amazing vacation, after having lots of margaritas and chips and salsa, you know that there is something super quick, super healthy that you can create a meal out of. And whether that is putting a jar of overnight oats together, you guys know how much I love overnight oats. You can do that. Or if you're coming home sort of around lunchtime, you can have your Greek yogurt and the berries, and that's perfect. So that's just one example. Some other options of things to have on hand for when you come back from your trip: protein powder, frozen cauliflower and spinach, fruit, because I love putting those things into a smoothie. And those are just some things that you can create a really well-balanced, healthy smoothie out of as soon as you get home. And, having those things as well is a great option to create a smoothie out of, especially if you're gone for a long period of time. Because, Greek yogurt might not last in your fridge if you're gone for a few weeks. But your protein powder, frozen fruit, frozen veggies, those should all stay really, really well in your cupboard and in your freezer, because they all have that shelf life. And so typically that is step number 1. And I don't know if anybody out there is like me. I love to clean my apartment before I go on a vacation. There's nothing worse than coming home from a vacation to a messy place. And so in cleaning up the apartment, I typically go through my fridge and we'll check to see if there's something in there that might be really, really great for a quick and nutritious option for when I come home. So short period of time, I would suggest, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. You could even have some canned fish in there. Longer periods of time, your frozen fruit, your frozen veggies, protein powder, to create a really healthy smoothie out of. And then that way, you can come back, and something I've actually done is leave, for example, the protein powder on your counter before you go on your trip, because as soon as you come back from your trip, you will see that protein powder, and that is a signal that, okay, I am home, I'm getting back into my healthy routine, and that will just prompt you to get right back on the healthy meal train. And so that is my top tip. Because I know a lot of people will come back from vacation and either feel like they need another vacation because they're not relaxed, or they struggle to get back into that routine of a healthy, balanced meal. And so having those couple of things just on hand, leaving the protein powder out on your counter so you see it as soon as you come home, is just such a simple but effective tip for travel. So that is number 1. Tip number 2. So this relates more to travel, and when you're booking your trip, I always suggest to my clients, and I do this myself as well, is to book an accommodation, whether that's a hotel, a hostel, Airbnb, whatever it is you're using, to book accommodation that has some sort of kitchenette or even just a mini fridge is totally fine if possible. And with that, trying as well to book a place that is relatively close to a grocery store or a market, so that as soon as you get to your destination, you know that there's something close by where you can maybe buy a couple of healthy staples that you put in the kitchenette or in the mini fridge. And that just really helps set the tone if you don't want to eat every single meal out. And I'll tell you why I'm saying if, of course, you want to have these food items. I'll talk about that a little later. But if having healthy snacks on hand while you're away is a priority to you, then while you're doing your trip research, just kind of take a look around to see if there's a place that you're looking that you love. Where is the closest grocery store? Is it a 5-minute walk? Is it a 50-minute drive? You know, that might help plan your trip a little bit more. And, you know, when you're kind of looking for that as well, some of the healthy, savory snacks that you can get are, you know, popcorn, whole grain crackers, nuts, fresh fruits and vegetables, which are amazing if there's like a farmer's market wherever you are. Or if you're somewhere for a long period of time and you want to have maybe breakfast every morning in your place, you could get things like Greek yogurt, eggs, toast, that kind of stuff. It sounds super basic, but the amount of people that I talk to that don't do this is quite a few. And so if there's just a couple small tips within here that are helpful, then I really, really hope that you can implement them into your next travel plan, if, of course, you want to. But yeah, so tip number 2 is just checking while you're doing your research to see where the closest market is, if there's a grocery store nearby. That way you know, okay, you arrive and you can go there, get a couple things, and then you're just set up, and that is it. Tip number 3. Now, this is especially important if you're traveling somewhere that is a few time zones different from where you live. And that tip would be to get fresh air and exposure to natural daylight as soon as you arrive, if obviously you're arriving during the day. So we naturally feel more energetic and awake during daylight hours, and that's when our body tells us it's time to do whatever it is we have to do while it's light outside. So typically people work during the day, go for walks during the day, get things done during the day. Getting that sunlight exposure as soon as you arrive will also be super, super helpful with fighting jet lag and fatigue. Now, getting that sunlight as soon as you can will also help to regulate your body clock so that you can adjust to that new time zone as quickly as possible. And then as soon as it gets dark out, your body will naturally get more tired and you'll start to feel sleepy and hopefully be able to have a really, really good night's sleep. This tip actually applies even if you are not traveling, because our bodies work on a 24-hour circadian rhythm. And really what that means is saying we have a body clock, and that body clock affects our sleep, it affects our wake cycle, and it affects so many other really, really important functions like regulating our hormones in the body. It regulates our appetite. And so getting sunlight exposure is just super important, especially if you can get it first thing in the morning, because it regulates that body clock. And if you are a person that struggles with falling asleep at night, going to bed and getting good quality sleep, I would stop for a moment and just look at your day and see, am I waking up and just going right to my computer? Am I going straight to the office? Or am I someone that's waking up and going for a walk in the morning? Because it is so interesting in how getting outside as soon as you can, natural daylight, sun exposure, can make a huge difference in our sleep patterns. And so, yeah, if you are somebody that is having problems with that, then check your morning, see what you're doing in the morning. And if there is an opportunity to get outside and get some natural sun exposure, I mean, I know it's the middle of winter, but our days are getting longer and the mornings are getting lighter. So it will help. And you might be surprised by even implementing 1 to 2 days of immediate sunlight and daylight exposure, how your sleep is affected. And it is truly phenomenal because it sounds like such an easy thing we can implement into our lives, and it is, but the benefits of it are absolutely incredible. And I know for myself personally, especially in the summer, I love going for a walk first thing in the morning when the sun is up, the sun is shining. I feel fantastic, energetic, awake. And that same evening, my body knows when it's time to wind down because it's getting dark out. I've gotten that early exposure to sunlight, and it's just a really, really healthy sleep pattern. So that is a tip, not just for travel, but for everyday life as well. And yeah, so obviously if you're traveling and it is evening when you arrive, like when we got to Argentina, it was 11 p.m. It was dark out. Obviously, there's no sunlight exposure then. And so if that is the case for you, I suggest just trying to adjust as quickly as possible to the time that you're in. So when we got to Argentina at 11 p.m., I basically took a shower, which felt so good after 35 hours of travel, brushed my teeth, went straight to bed. If you were arriving somewhere where it's sort of their dinner time, I would encourage you to go out for dinner, sit on a patio, have a meal, and then just so that your body adjusts as soon as possible, because you don't want to waste travel days being exhausted with jet lag. So those are a couple of really, really good tips, I think, for travel. Those are the top 3 that I have. So setting your house up for success for when you come back. Tip number 2 is looking to see where the closest grocery store market is when you're booking accommodation. And tip number 3, trying to fight jet lag or fatigue as soon as you get to your destination by exposing yourself to sunlight, daylight, all that good stuff. And of course, if you don't get to your destination when it is daytime, then adapting to their dinner time, or if it's evening, late, have a shower, go to bed, start fresh. So those are some really, really simple, sustainable, easy to implement habits if you're traveling and if those things are important to you. So now I'm going to go through some questions I got from my Instagram. Thank you all for asking me these questions because they help create the podcast and provide content to it as well. And obviously, if you're asking these questions, you want the answers, you're curious, and so I'm excited to give them to you. So somebody asked me, are you going to weigh yourself after Argentina? Absolutely not. So I am home now from Argentina. I absolutely enjoyed every single meal, all that good stuff. And yes, I felt heavier, I felt puffier, all that good stuff. The reason I decided not to weigh myself after Argentina is not because of, having gained weight, but I just don't need to see that number in order to know that I've put on some pounds. I can tell that I had gained weight from the way my clothes were fitting, from the way I was feeling. And so That's all I really needed to know. So yeah, I did not weigh myself after Argentina. Now when this podcast comes out, it's going to be a few weeks since we've been home. And I will tell you that since then, yes, I have weighed myself and I am in my healthy range that I like to be. So, a couple of weeks of dialing it in with whole foods, with single ingredients, drinking lots of water, I'm back to my regular weight. And so I didn't need to step on a scale after my trip in order to figure all of that out. So the answer is no. I did not weigh myself right after I got home. Now, the next question. Is there a downside of saying fuck it, pardon my French, while you are traveling? So I think what this person meant was, if they've been on a health journey, they've lost some fat, they're trying to make healthy changes. Is there a downside of going on vacation and saying, I'm not going to pay attention to anything when it comes to nutrition? My answer to that is, it honestly depends. However, if you go into your vacation saying, I am going to just absolutely indulge, enjoy, relax, not exercise, not do anything, and you are going into your vacation with that mindset and that intention, I fully support that, because I think we don't get to travel probably as much as we like. And so when these vacations come up, that might be your 1 week or your 10 days of the year where you can truly do whatever you want. And so in that case, I absolutely support that. And, the question was, is there a downside? The downside of that is, if you go into your trip with that mentality, phenomenal. But my suggestion here would be to have a plan for when you come home. Because if you have an absolute free-for-all for a week or 10 days or whatever it is, and then you come home, your fridge is empty, you've got no groceries, you might have leftover ice cream pints in your freezer, you are not setting yourself up for success for when you return. So that is where it might be, a little sketchy. But if you go into your trip with that mindset, you're going to indulge and enjoy. But then, you've got your yogurt in the fridge, you've got your smoothie ready to go with the protein powder on the counter. I think that's amazing, because that is showing you are taking the action to get yourself right back on track as soon as you are home. So that would be my answer to that question. The great thing though is that you have control over your choices and your decisions while you're on vacation. So if you want to enjoy a few meals but then kind of button things up while you're away, that's an amazing choice. But if you want to go away and go absolutely crazy at the buffet, whatever it is, that is also a great choice. Everybody is different. But I think you also just have to know that you are in control of the choices that you decide to make while you're on vacation. Okay, next question from Instagram. Do you have any healthy snack ideas for the plane/travel day itself? Yes. So if your flight doesn't leave until mid-morning or in the afternoon, that is ideal, because then you can make sure that you're having a really healthy, satisfying breakfast. But I know a lot of flights leave first thing in the morning, and so that might not be a realistic scenario for you. And so if that is the case, I would suggest some snack ideas like nuts and seeds, or some sort of trail mix that you can even put together yourself. I love buying a variety of different nuts and seeds in the bulk section in the grocery store, and then combining those all together and then scooping some out so that you're getting a variety of, pumpkin seeds, cashews, almonds, peanuts, whatever it is. That's a really, really good high fiber, healthy fat snack that you can bring. High fiber crackers are always a great idea. You can cut up some raw veggies, carrots, celery, those travel really, really well. You can also bring a little bit of nut butter with you, like almond butter, peanut butter, cashew butter. You can dip your veggies into those. Another option I would suggest would be if you are someone that enjoys protein powder and has one that you like, you can mix that in. Maybe just bring it in a separate container because you can't have water going through security. But after, you could put a little protein powder in your water bottle so that you're having water, but you're filling up at the same time with some protein. So those are just some options as well. I have noticed, depending on airports, there are healthier options these days at the airport. But also just know if you're going on a shorter flight, a shorter trip, you can also fast and just prioritize hydration and that kind of thing, where snacks might not be essential. But if you are looking for snacks, those ones that I just mentioned are super easy to pack, super simple, and they'll get you through a flight or a layover or whatever it is. And someone recently was asking about protein bars as well. This is probably the time I would say, that would be okay. Protein bars, I like to actually call them carbohydrate bars because most protein bars on the market have more carbohydrates and sugar than actual protein. And so this is why, with my nutrition clients and people that ask me about them and what my thoughts are always prioritize whole foods when you can. If you look at the ingredient list of a protein bar, there are probably 20 ingredients on there. But if you have a long day of travel, you're not able to pack snacks, then a protein bar might be a really good option in that case. So that is sort of my take on snacks and things you can bring on the plane, which are really, really great. The next question, what are you supposed to do if you don't have access to a kitchen while traveling? So this is a really good question because I know you aren't always going to find a place with a kitchen. So my answer here is to just make sure meals that you're having out are healthy and they align with your goals. If you're not able to store yogurt or eggs or whatever it is, just make sure the meals you're having out fit with the goals that you're wanting to achieve. And so I always say, if you're looking at a menu, to start with a protein source. What will your protein source be in this meal? And I say that because I've said it before, protein is the most satisfying macronutrient. And so if you are starting your meal menu search with a protein, then you can fill in the gaps from there. So I always like to say protein, veggies, carb, if you want. And that's totally fine. Again, if you don't have a kitchen, you can have some sort of dry snacks on hand. So like I mentioned before, you could have high fiber crackers or the nuts and seeds or trail mix. You can get some popcorn. You can also plan to do something like charcuterie where you don't have a kitchen, but you get your high fiber crackers, you buy some veggies, you cut those up and have some meat with that, and that is your meal day of. So there's so many different options whether you have a kitchen or not. Again, it's up to you to make the decision on how you're going to plan your meals while you are away. Okay, the last question I got, or I'm going to answer on Instagram, was a direct message. It didn't actually fit in the question box. And someone said to me, I get anxious knowing I have a trip coming up because I don't want to ruin the progress I've made so far. Do you have any remedies to relieve this anxious feeling? First of all, I just want to thank this person so much for sending me this message. It really makes me feel just happy knowing that someone is asking me this question, which means they're going to trust me with my answer. And obviously, all these questions are anonymous. And, I know that a lot of people can get anxious about traveling, especially when you have just finished a program or you're still on a nutrition program. I remember it was the last day of the program I was on when I lost the majority of my fat. And 2 days later, I was flying to New Zealand. Now, I had major internal anxiety about it because I had been in such a consistent, structured routine at home. I was buying all my groceries, making all of my meals, knowing exactly what I was putting in my body for many weeks. And then that came to a screeching halt. And 2 days later, I was flying to New Zealand for a family trip. And so I had, some very strong feelings about that, nervousness, anxiousness, whatever you want to call it. However, in the back of my mind, I knew that the prior, however many weeks it was, I knew what I was doing in terms of getting my health and nutrition on track. And so I looked at the trip to New Zealand as an opportunity to not only enjoy the vacation, but to actually implement some of the things I had learned at home while I was away. So again, we stayed at places that had kitchens. I made sure there were grocery stores nearby. I made a habit of getting some healthy snacks that would be great for if I felt cravings come on or whatever it is. And, it just kind of lived through it. But I also enjoyed every single moment with my family because that was such an incredible opportunity to have. Came home, did not weigh myself, got right back on track. And that is, one of my top tips for this question here about how to relieve this anxious feeling about traveling when you've been so healthy, you've maybe lost some fat. The great thing is if you've been in a routine for a while, it's sort of like muscle memory. If you've gone to the gym and then you've, not gone for a while and then it's your first day back, you kind of get right back into it. And so it's sort of the same for when you're coming back from a vacation. You just kind of get right back into your routine as soon as you go to the grocery store and get those groceries for the first time in a long time. And so that is great because you know that you're capable of doing that, and all you have to do is start as soon as you get home. And sort of touching on the things I've spoken about earlier in this podcast is to just know that you're going on a vacation to relax, to rest, to enjoy, to recharge, maybe to get some vitamin D, and those things should be at the top of your priority list. And you can focus on some other areas while you're there, but just know that if it's been weeks and weeks and weeks, maybe even months and months of getting on a healthy track, that will not all go by the wayside just because you're on a vacation. And having said that, I do understand those anxious feelings. It can be easier said than done. But again, the great thing about this is that you are in control. You know what foods make you feel good. You know what place you're going to if you're going on a vacation. And the other thing I would say here is if you're going on a vacation with somebody and you've just been on a health journey or you're still on one, getting off one, whatever, I think it's really important to communicate how you feel with whomever you're going with. So, if you're going with your partner, just to say, I am so happy with how I'm feeling in my body right now. I cannot wait to go on vacation, but I also just want you to know that I do want to make some healthy choices while I'm away, and maybe we can do that together. That way you're putting the message out there. It's known to whoever you're traveling with, And then if there's an opportunity at a restaurant to maybe make a better meal choice, then you have the support of your spouse or whomever it is, because you've made it clear to them that that's important to you. And that's just sort of another maybe weight lifted off your shoulders. So thank you so much for asking me that question. I really, really appreciate it. I think it's a fabulous question. I think more people struggle with that. Also, I just have to say, I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, all that kind of stuff. And so if it's true, deep anxiety that you're dealing with, that you're struggling with, more than a couple of tips from me can help satisfy, then maybe it might be worth speaking to somebody who is qualified to give you proper sound advice. So I just want to put that out there as well. So those are the Instagram questions, which I loved, and hopefully a few of you had the same question if you didn't ask me one. And I just want to now quickly talk about my trip to Argentina, because I think if you are on my Instagram page, you'll know that I typically don't do filters. It probably looks like I've just rolled out of bed and I've done an Instagram story. And that is all on purpose, because I just do everything raw, it's real, and that's just me. And, I really, really believe in being authentic and honest, especially on a social media platform, especially on a podcast platform. And so I want to just be honest about my trip to Argentina. So before we left, I had it in my mind, because we were gone for more than 3 weeks. That's a long time. I thought that we would get groceries in each landing spot that we were at. So make a healthy breakfast most days so that we weren't eating out at every single meal. Well, to be totally honest and transparent with you all, that absolutely did not happen. Now, there were a few days out of our 3-week trip where we did buy some yogurt at a grocery store. We got some veggies, and we did buy some eggs, and we did have those few things a couple mornings. But my vision, what I had in my mind of preparing breakfast most days, did not even come close to happening. Now, part of the reason for that was how incredibly hot it was, and honestly, how cheap the food out was. And also, and probably most importantly, how delicious the food was. I could do a whole podcast episode just on the food, but that was part of the reason why I didn't want to just have yogurt and eggs, because I have that here at home on a daily and a weekly basis. And to me, it felt wrong in the moment to have those everyday food items only to skip out on the most amazing bread and fresh butter and incredible meat and eggs and all of that kind of stuff. And so, a few days into it, I just kind of made it up in my mind that we're just going to absolutely enjoy breakfast. And if we decide to get some yogurt, we'll get some yogurt. So that was one thing. And like I said before, I've been on trips before where I've gone to the grocery store, I've made breakfast, I made lunch, and that's great. This trip just didn't feel like that, and I'm okay with that. It's so interesting because, yes, I posted a lot of food photos on Instagram and honestly enjoyed every single thing I had. And in this moment right now, I do not regret having any of those foods. I feel like now if I skipped a piece of dulce de leche cake, or if I skipped a croissant, or if I skipped some sort of amazing pasta dish just to be quote unquote healthy, I would totally be kicking myself now. I would say, why didn't you have that? Instead, now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that was probably some of the best cake I've ever had. That was some of the best steak I've ever had. And, I've turned it into this really positive food experience, food memory that I can just really, really enjoy now and be so thankful that I actually enjoyed that stuff instead of, skipping it just to save some calories. So yes, major indulging happened without a doubt, but I think it's important to say that I did focus on some other very important pillars of health and nutrition while I was there. And these are things that people typically do not think about when it comes to fat loss, a health journey, all that kind of stuff. But these are also some major pillars of health that I work with my one-on-one clients on. And so the three things that I made a point to focus on was hydration, my daily steps, and my sleep. So without a doubt, there was a few days we took less than 10,000 steps, but most days we were taking close to 20,000 steps a day. We were exploring, we were walking, we were doing everything. And so I made sure to get a minimum of 7,500 steps every single day. And that was achieved because daily movement is so important just for your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health. But walking also helps to regulate your appetite, regulate your hunger hormones, and all that good stuff. So it focused on steps. Now, interestingly enough, it was 35 degrees on average every single day there. And so obviously focusing on water intake and hydration was a huge, huge priority as well. Because nobody feels good when you're dehydrated. So I made a point to ensure that my pee was clear as much as possible. And we brought our own reusable water bottles. We made sure those were filled up all the time. We always had water in our Airbnb, like big jugs of water so that we could fill up our water bottles. And so staying hydrated was number 2 on my priority list while I was there. So steps, hydration, and sleep. So this was a huge priority as well because the month of December before we left was just absolute chaos. There was just so much happening, lots of life curveballs being thrown at us, everything in between. And so for me, it was just hugely important to have really good quality sleep while we were away. And so, as I mentioned, it was super hot during the day. And so we would often go back to the Airbnb in the middle of the day. And I love this about Argentina is a lot of the stores and some, not most restaurants, but some would close during that peak heat time during the day because that is when everybody rests, they go home, they have lunch, they have a siesta, whatever it is. And so we really got into that and I actually started to love it because it was such a great recharge in the middle of the day, but then it allowed us to walk around in the evening, have a later dinner, but still get really, really good quality sleep. And on that note, it was really important for us to not set alarms, just to let our bodies wake us up when it was ready. And so, though, yes, I certainly indulged in all the food, all the drinks, everything else. Those 3 pillars of health, sleep, water, and movement, were a big part of my focus in Argentina. And so I feel really, really proud of just accomplishing those while also still enjoying all of the incredible food that they had there. So again, if you are traveling and you don't want it to be a total free-for-all, you can do something similar to what I did is, enjoy all that food, but maybe focus on your steps or your movement, or if there's a gym where you're staying, get a workout in. It doesn't all have to be related to food. And I know for me, traveling and my husband as well, we like to plan our days around our meals. And so that's something exciting for us. And so going into a trip knowing that means I can focus on other areas of health that aren't directly related to nutrition, because it's more than just what we eat and what we put in our body. So that really brings this episode kind of to a close. I hope some of this was helpful to you if you have a trip coming up this year or you're starting to plan one. This is a great time to listen to this episode, or to, if you're right in the middle of planning a trip and you're looking at accommodation and you haven't thought about where the closest grocery store or market is, this might be a really helpful tip. Again, if you are going on vacation and you are going into it knowing you're going to just enjoy and relax, not exercise, and that's it, I think that is fantastic. And just remember that you are only ever a single bite of food away from getting back on track. And whether that's after being away or whatever it is, that is how close you are to getting your health and nutrition on track. One single bite of food. And so again, if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, or if you're watching it on YouTube, I do have a YouTube channel that you're welcome to subscribe to. It'll just be me sitting chatting, versus you guys listening on Spotify or Apple or Anchor. I so appreciate you listening all the way through. I hope you found this episode helpful. Feel free to leave a comment, or again, if you have questions about anything I've outlined in this episode, please let me know. I'm always happy to answer your questions, and I answer 100% of the questions I get. So again, that is it for this week's episode of the Nutrition by Carmen podcast. Please, again, leave me a 5-star rating and written review if you haven't already. And if you're loving the podcast, I would so appreciate it. And that is it. And we will see you on the very next episode.